Ladies and gentlemen, the national TV cameras caught another heated exchange between Derek Carr and a fellow Saints player. And the media used this as another opportunity to sow more division in the locker room. You wouldn't know it from the press conferences, but the Saints actually won this game by 3 possessions. It got so bad with reporters that the head coach and quarterback had to fight back.
Listen, stop. Okay? Stop. We're making way too big a deal of it. Let's move on.
You don't think that conflict's like maybe an issue though?
Brother, I'm not trying to be negative with you anymore. I'm sorry.
They seem to be upset that Carr is not saying his classic, "Put it all on me." But the good news is that the Saints can still win the division despite the locker room issues. We'll get into all this and more. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content from me, Wi-Fi Willie. Things have been negative for the Saints this year because they have not come out guns a-blazing and absolutely lit up the scoreboard. I think a lot of their players are overrated. I don't think Alvin Kamara is one of the top running backs in the NFL. The dude is slow as hell. I think Michael Thomas is washed and clearly a head case. Seems like the team is doing a lot better without the guy. And at the same time, you got an offensive line that just cannot pass block. We learned just how bad it has been all year. Derek Carr has not bitched about anything, hasn't complained about injuries, but we finally discovered that he actually has 3 rib fractures. 2 of them nobody knew about. He didn't tell anyone.
Eric, when did the rib fractures happen? Sorry, I mean to talk over you.
Yeah, there's the other 2 no one even knew. I played through them, but the one was last week.
So this guy is getting banged up. He's been having to tough it out all year. We know it's the most banged up that he's ever been. And also, this is a brand new team where he's the franchise quarterback. So when things don't go well, he's gonna be a little frustrated. That is why we saw some heated moments early in the season between Chris Olave and Derek Carr. Derek Carr was getting after him. But like we've mentioned on this channel before, you see tons of quarterbacks do this. Obviously, some of the future Hall of Famers like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady do this as well. So getting upset that Derek Carr is getting vocal during the game, these people are just acting like they haven't seen football before. You even had the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes get really vocal on the sideline. Chris Jones also got vocal with the defensive line coach. This is what competitive people do in a heated moment. So of course, naturally the media made it a big deal when Erik McCoy, a guy who has not been having a good season at all this year, making roughly $12 million. Keep in mind, last week against the Lions, this guy false started as the center twice on the same drive. He's been making tons of mistakes. Like we mentioned earlier, Derek Carr's been getting banged up, hit left and right. And this was another play, another example of Derek Carr having no time to throw, instantly having pressure in his face, instantly getting sacked. And he was frustrated with the offensive line not able to pick up another pass rusher and him getting hit very easily. Derek Carr exchanged some words with Erik McCoy, and if you take a look at the play, it seems like perhaps McCoy was supposed to pick up this blitzing linebacker or help double team with Cesar Ruiz.
There you go. 49's a mark. Hey, West corner.
We don't know the specifics of what exactly the problem is, but obviously the media made it a big deal, and Dennis Allen had to answer questions about it after the game.
Is it concerning at all that your quarterback's finding a couple of these things on the field?
Now, look, this is a highly competitive business that we're in, so I don't think anybody gets too sensitive as far as I'm concerned. It's water under the bridge. Let's move on.
When it's 2 team captains yelling at each other, one has to be held back. You don't feel like that's a concern for team chemistry overall? I think
if you're ever in a highly competitive environment, and things aren't going the way that you want it to go, yeah, there's sometimes that you get frustrated. You lash out a little bit.
Dennis Allen seemed pretty annoyed at the media because they kept on trying to get his soundbite, kept on trying to get him to comment on the fact that there's division in the locker room. The only head cases on the Saints right now are the ones that are on Twitter too much, like Michael Thomas, who recently deactivated. But this was the first time we saw offensive linemen sort of get into it with Derek Carr. These guys are both captains. Dennis Allen tried to analogize it to an argument with him and his wife.
I'm glad that both of them have the balls to at least stand up and fight. You know what I mean? So, hell, my wife and I argue. It happens. So let's don't make too much of it.
But the reporters were still not satisfied with these answers. They wanted to talk about the trend of negativity in locker room division. They even wanted to talk about fans wanting Jameis Winston to play for some reason, a pipe dream that's never going to happen, mainly because he's a trash quarterback.
I'm trying to chip with Jameis a couple of times. The way that
Listen, stop. Okay? Stop. We're making way too big a deal of it. Let's move on.
So I like the fact that Dennis Allen got vocal. I like the fact that he told these reporters he's glad that they were not being soft, that they were being competitive and being heated. And I think it's about time that this head coach stands up for himself more, because this media team is trying to eat him alive, and it seems like they almost want his career to be over with the Saints. Erik McCoy, the center, the guy who's been screwing up all year in my opinion, he definitely doesn't have a blameless slate. Well, this guy gave his reaction to what happened.
But out loud, I would like to say, Derek Carr, I am sorry. I let my emotions get the best of me, and that's not okay.
You see, he apologized to Derek Carr. I don't know what their dispute is, but I know that Derek Carr is always aware of what's going on with the play. You can try to hate on this guy for other football reasons, but mentally, he always has that stuff down. But when Carr was asked about it, he took some responsibility.
Yeah, always. Yeah, I mean, things happen, man, you know. We were both had our reasons. We were both right for an aspect. We were both wrong for an aspect. But that's not the only time that's ever happened, you know, with me and a player or an offensive lineman or a center.
So he said that they were both right and both wrong at the same time. Erik McCoy apologized to Carr. Just like these players said, Carr and Erik McCoy were sitting on the sideline talking about it after that heated argument. It was not a big deal. These guys hash it out. They're professionals. Things get heated. Things like this happen. But it seems like the reporters are so anti-Dennis Allen, so anti-Derek Carr, that they almost feel like he should have taken even more blame for this happening, and he should also be even more responsible for this happening just because of the Chris Olave situation that happened earlier in the year when Olave ran the wrong route. So Carr ended up getting pretty annoyed with the negativity, and people act like this is due. If you've watched the Raiders and Derek Carr like me, you know that sometimes he does clap back at reporters, like when he had to go after Paul Gutierrez for his tone.
Doesn't matter, Derek. Why do you talk about it and why do you?
Thank you, Paul. It's so good to see you. And so I don't appreciate your tone either. You can pump that back a little bit.
So this reporter, Nick Underhill of NewOrleans.football, this guy's always been trying to ask some little testy questions because he's so critical of Carr, and he deep down thinks that Jameis Winston would be good, which is like, yikes. I mean, you should maybe get your credentials removed for that. I'm kidding. But this reporter previously got annoyed because Carr said he's not going to tell you the reasons why and the corrections that they have inside their building. Obviously, you want to keep that stuff close to your chest.
You're going to keep asking the same question. I'm going to keep giving a lot of words and no answer, you know, because I'm not going to tell you.
So Carr got more annoyed with this guy this time when he was trying to double down on the negativity.
You've had a couple of those this year. Is that something that you kind of
Me and Erik?
think about or be mindful of?
Well, I'm just excited that we won a game today. You know, people gritted through some stuff, and that's what I'm happy about.
You don't think that conflict's like maybe an issue, though?
Brother, I'm not trying to be negative with you anymore. I'm sorry.
It's so crazy that the Saints media are so hellbent on this regime ending, are so hellbent on this season being a failure, that they could not even appreciate the win. And all of them, I watch a lot of these people's shows, they all talk shit on the team going into this game. They all said that the Saints were gonna barely beat the Panthers by 3 points, but then the Saints went out there and won by 3 possessions, won by over 21 points. Talk your shit now. They couldn't. They couldn't talk shit. They wanted to hate on Derek Carr, but he didn't have a bad game. If you want to talk about the offense not being hot in the first half, I get it, but he was under an immense amount of pressure, took so many hits. This was a game where you actually had to run the football. You actually had to run the football. The Saints didn't have Taysom Hill. Alvin Kamara was finally able to do something on the ground because the Panthers' pass defense is actually pretty hot. They have not given up over 300 yards of passing offense to anybody in the NFL this year, and most of the time they only give up roughly 185 yards a game. So obviously the Saints or any team, we're not going to have tons of passing yards against the Panthers. I don't want to be cynical, but I honestly think that it's so simple why these people don't like Carr. Carr doesn't give them any interviews. Somebody who gives a lot of these people interviews is Alvin Kamara. They act like this guy's had a good year when the Saints run game, like we mentioned earlier, is complete garbage unless Taysom Hill is running it, and they barely even were able to get 56 yards today against a Panthers run defense that is trash. They're good against the pass, but trash against the run. Still barely 56 yards. Alvin Kamara has not had a 100-yard game this year at all, not even close. 80 is the most against New England when they blew him out. So I don't want to hear this bullshit from these reporters, blaming Dennis Allen for everything, blaming Derek Carr for everything, when they're not going to focus on some of these other deficiencies on their team, like Alvin Kamara in the run game. And it's so funny because I feel like these reporters have put themselves in a hole. They've talked so much shit shit on the Saints, so much shit on Carr and Dennis Allen, and the Saints are literally tied for first place and can win the division if they want to. They got to go and beat the Giants this week. Then they play the Rams, the Bucks, and Falcons. The Rams, Bucks, and Falcons are all in the hunt. Obviously, the Falcons and Bucks are in it for the division, tied with the Saints, but the Saints control their destiny. If they win these 4 games, they will win the division and host a playoff game. And when they do that, I believe they will do that. All these people who are booing this team right now, all these reporters who are talking trash, they're going to have to just sit there and shut up because they were doubters the whole time and they're not going to get to celebrate. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the Saints will pull this off? I don't think the locker room is as in shambles as people want to believe. I think there's just a couple of head cases on the team, and right now, it seems like it's likely that those people aren't even going to be around next year, so maybe things are going to be more kumbaya. If you are watching this video right now, that means you really dig this channel. Subscribe to this channel if you want to support us and want us to make more content. My name is Wi-Fi Willie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.